I experienced three insights in my spiritual journey which changed the course of my life. And my first insight was that I don't know. Now, during this stage of spiritual exploration and understanding, the sense of doership was very strong within me because everything was me centered, me focused. So, all my effort to gain all spiritual understanding was to strengthen the self of personal identification. And in that endeavor, I started listening to lectures and philosophy and started reading a bit here and there. Because my belief was that if I don't know, then I'm not at par with other spiritual people, with other seekers. Therefore, to be on a spiritual journey, I must gather more knowledge because that will bring more wisdom. That was my thought at that point of time. So, one thought was that I should know the Vedas, I should know the Upanishads. But then that was a bit complicated because Upanishads and Vedas are vast. So I thought, okay, let me start with Bhagavad Gita, or let me read some Zen teachings here and there. But again, it was all very extensive and it required lots of time. So all the irritation and frustration during that stage was to know something, to become more knowledgeable. And the thing was that as I gained more and more knowledge by reading scriptures and by listening to certain masters, I really thought that I'm gaining enlightenment and that I am somehow superior to others who are not enlightened. And that was a huge trap because it brings out a very ugly side of the ego, which is known as the spiritual ego, where one starts believing themselves to be a guru, a master, or someone who knows, someone who's more special because they know something more than the ordinary folks. But then keeping up with all of this spiritual literature, all the vastness, it was getting difficult. And then there were a lot of contradictions within the scriptures as well. Because even if you read Upanishads, there are mixed messages, Somewhere there will be things which will be in opposition to the views that are expressed somewhere else. So a lot of people who try to, enhance their knowledge by reading scriptures, they end up getting confused. There's a lot of confusion because you really need someone who has devoted their life understanding the scriptures. Even then, there is no guarantee that that person will have complete understanding of what is being said in the scriptures. And more importantly, these scriptures had been written long back. So I believe that some sort of tempering or some sort of modifications may have happened. you know. So, how does one trust? Because if something does not match with your experience, it is difficult to, imbibe that teaching, that concept. So, I was quite convinced in that spiritual phase that I don't know and I need to know more. So that kept me running in a chase for more knowledge, for more, enlightenment. And I could see my spiritual ego coming out through the back door, and it's quite vicious. Then at some point, a second insight happened. And that insight was that I can't know, because I could not find an absolute answer to anything in this world, in this life. There is no answer, no absolute solution to any problem in this world. So naturally, one begins to question the nature of questions. Where are the questions originating from? Is there really an answer that can, quench one's spiritual thirst? Or are we just trying to evade something? Are we just trying to distract ourselves from something? And this insight brought me some peace, because now it was clear to me that what I'm looking for, the answer is not there in any of the scriptures or in any of the teachings. And the mind may itself be a very limited entity to understand the totality of what happens. Because mind is a tool that is limited in its interpretation. So mind by itself may not crack the code. The very idea of cracking the code, what was that? Like, that was my question. Like, why do I want to so desperately crack this code? Why I want to understand the mystery of life and death? Why am I so hung up on the existential questions? And is there an answer that can suffice, that can satisfy my mind? And there was a knowing, and the knowing was that no, there is no answer that can satisfy the intellectual curiosity, because intellect is the part of ego mind. And the ego mind's nature is movement. So movement is not the answer. But then a third insight happened. And the third insight was that there is no individual doer, there is no individual knower, and knowing is all there is. Now, this was a major sigh of relief. Why? Because it ended the seeking. It dissolved the questions. Now there was no need of answers. So whenever I experienced an emotional spike, I simply witnessed the emotion, I witnessed the intensity, and there was absolutely no resistance to that. But there was no taking ownership of any feeling, sensation, or thought. Because it was clear to me that there is no subject, that the subject is an illusion. Now, one does not arrive at this conclusion by thinking. This understanding happens in the space of impersonal awareness of I am. So, trying to use tools, techniques, practices, and methodologies to come to a conclusion will actually result in a lot of frustration. Because till there is this subject doing a practice to attain something, to attain an object, the separation remains. And the separation by nature is suffering. But when the subject dissolves, what remains is pure happening, or what is. Then things are seen for what they are, not for what they should or should not be. And this eliminates so much confusion. This eliminates suffering. It does not eliminate pain of daily living. The moments of pleasure and pain keep alternating. That is life. But what it eliminates is the incessant need of the thinking mind to know the truth. Because it is clear that truth is just here and now. It is not there at a certain distance. So, separation is your imagination. God is not separate from you. God shines in your heart as the being, and there is never any separation from the being. You and being are one. So the wise sages, they say that where I am, God is not. And where God is, I am not. So the third insight was my final insight, which clearly said that there is no individual knower and knowing is all there is. But now, someone asked me a question that if your first insight was that I don't know, then how do you know that your third insight is? And my answer is, I still don't know. It is just my concept. These three insights are just my concepts. I don't claim that they are truth. I don't claim that you will have the same experiences. You may have completely different insights. So I still maintain my first insight that I truly do not know. And I think that is quite liberating because it frees me from the incessant thinking, from the pain of this obsessive urge to know things. It frees me. It completely eliminates it cuts off all the nonsense. And I can just simply focus on my work at hand. I can carry on with my day-to-day activities, accepting what comes in the moment, whether it is pain or pleasure. I accept in the moment. So the result of my third insight is that life becomes spontaneous. The living becomes spontaneous, moment to moment. There is never this urge to fix now in hope of a better future. Because then there is no image projected into the future. There is no attachment to that image. There is no image here as well. and there is no sense of any personal doership. The action still happens, and the action is spontaneous and depending on the situation. Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm sad, sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm frustrated. All those things happen. But everything is momentary. Nothing sustains. So one moment I'm different, another moment I may be completely different. And this allows me to live life, to fully explore life, and it it produces it produces a gratitude for this, immense gratitude for this, because this is all there is. There is no past, there is no future, there is just now.